Welcome, everybody. This is Dr. Josh Long with AME Podcast, kind of a quest to continue music education in the adult world. And what I mean by that is getting people out there with their instruments, getting music education in the hands of folks who stopped after institutions. Um, this is sponsored by Art and Music Emporium, which is serving artistic excellence. We actually fix instruments, do private lessons, do all kinds of different things, such as the Wildwood Band to encourage people to come out and play. We also have a lot of other different events that happen throughout the year. So if you're interested and want to stay connected, we do have a Patreon account. You can get involved with that or do like us on Facebook, Art Music Emporium Incorporated, or me, Joshua E. Long, or as well as you can like our YouTube page. So all of those kind of things. I am so excited today. I have an awesome guest, Dr. Chris Troiano, who is a fellow euphoniumist and enthusiast in that world. I know him from George Mason University, also with I believe, the 8th Regiment Green Machines, right? And is
Yeah.
very big of a history buff.
Mhm.
And I'm just so excited today to have this conversation. It's kind of two worlds coming together. Well, three actually: music education, euphonium, and history.
There you go.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm really excited about this conversation. We've been talking back and forth online, so we thought we'd get it out there. So anyway, Chris, why don't you tell us a little about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, awesome. Well, first off, thank you so much, Josh, for having me. It's really awesome what you're doing. Trying to further this music education and community music making goal, and it's awesome and very in line with a lot of the work that I'm doing as well. So I'm glad we're finally able to have this chat and share our thoughts with your listeners. So looking forward to that.
Yes, thank you.
Uh, yeah. So I grew up on Long Island, a musical family. My dad was a band director. Both my siblings are musicians, became band directors and private lesson teachers. I grew up playing in two community bands on Long Island, the Huntington Community Band and the Northport Community Band. I always found it really fun throughout high school, being very interested in music, during the school year, and then feeling like I was a gigging musician over the summer with one band rehearsing on Monday and a concert on Wednesday, and then the other band rehearsing on Tuesday with a concert on Thursday. Being able to do that the whole summer, I got to meet a lot of great people and got to play a lot of really good rep also. And then, long story short, went to Texas, did my bachelor's degree in music education and euphonium performance at the University of North Texas, and then came up to Northern Virginia and did a master's and doctorate in euphonium here at George Mason University, where I am now employed by the Green Machine Ensembles, which is George Mason University's athletic band program. The mother ensemble is the pep band. They play at all the basketball games and various school and community events. But then there are 10 or 9 other ensembles kind of a part of that umbrella that include indoor competitive groups like a WGI competitive indoor drumline and winter guard. We have a New Orleans brass band, a little funk band, a dance troupe, and then what they hired me to do was oversee the historical ensembles as a part of this organization, uh, helping administratively with our fife and drum corps, and then directing and leading our 19th century brass band. And
Awesome.
here I am in good old Fairfax, Virginia, living the dream.
Living the dream. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, before I definitely want to unpack quite a bit of kind of what you're doing, the historic things, and the sort of historic ensembles that you're doing. But I was interested, I wanted to jump back. You mentioned that you were in community bands, and I just wanted to jump into that a little bit,
Yeah.
as you were going through high school. And it's funny, the first thing I thought about when you discussed that is I think the joke is when you have a band rehearsal every week, or every night of the week, then you know that you got yourself into trouble
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
have concerts constantly, right? Because I know so many who play in that. But anyway, I'm interested. Obviously, you moved on. You went on, got your music ed degree. You're obviously a fine teacher now, doing all those things and performing. But I was just interested. Did any of the community band work play any integral part in your in your success or in your drive or your participation or anything. I'm just interested about that.
Yeah.
That side of it, because I like to go right there just to, to see what these ensembles do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of at multiple angles if I'm kind of really dissecting it. My dad and my brother, and for a time before my sister moved to Texas, my sister, all of us were playing, particularly in the Huntington Community Band,
Okay.
and that group was largely populated by music educators in
Hmm.
on Long Island. So they were all friends with my dad and people that I knew growing up, kind of thing.
Hmm.
So being able to be around these musicians that I learned from in more formal school settings, private lesson
Hmm.
teachers, sectionals, master classes, seeing them perform in professional groups and learning from them by attending those concerts and then being able to play next to them, was really, really helpful. Just being able to rub elbows with those people a little bit. um, that the Huntington Community Band was the first time I was able to solo with a
Oh, wow.
band. When I was in high school, I was able to do Napoli with the band, and then when my
Wow.
family, we all moved to Texas kind of for different reasons around the same time. So there was one summer where we knew it was our last time playing with Huntington, and I was able to do another solo with them, the Yellow Rose of Texas, as a
Hmm.
send off to Texas.
Yep.
And then me, my dad, and my brother did a tuba euphonium version of Bugler's Holiday with the
Oh,
group. So
wow.
really being able to kind of have that opportunity, which is rare for a lot of people to be able to have
Uh-huh.
that solo in front of a band. So that was definitely helpful. But definitely being able to have these people that are all there for the love of music and
Hmm.
not most of the time getting bogged down by a lot of the politics or
Hmm.
the economic things that could be associated with going to a job, which for a
Right.
lot of people, that play music full time, playing in ensembles like that is their job. So kind of having that veil removed and that factor not being a thing, being
Hmm.
able to just really have a good time with people. It helped being able to, as a high school student, develop my communication skills
Yep.
with
Sure.
professionals and more senior members of the music community on Long Island. So definitely being able to grow up and be a part of that and kind of hone how we talk to people and engage with people
Yeah.
was definitely something that helped going through college and now into my professional career as well.
Well, awesome. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's a lot,
Yeah.
because it's and thinking of it this way, it's I kind of I'll share a little bit too. Like I was one that was in high school and I started playing with the Pioneer Band of Allentown, actually in Pennsylvania, and it's funny of who you talk to, and just like you said, rubbing elbows with the music teachers, giving you the ins and outs of even college as you're heading,
Yeah.
even though that. I'm sure you had a fine music teacher at your school, but
Mhm.
it's just hearing different perspectives all the time, and then the communication side of it. And I do have to say kudos to you, getting low brass, a low brass solo,
Yeah,
because
thank
it's
you.
not that it's unheard of, but as we always beat out to the trumpets. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. That's all good.
So, so I guess like what I'm asking a little bit too was, and it could be or could not be, but you're very active. You're active with, obviously with your high school, with your community groups, and then you go off to college. And I mean, you go to, Texas, and I believe you studied with Dr. Bowman,
Yep.
Brian Bowman,
Yep.
and you know, um, real big high in the euphonium world.
Yep. Yep.
And of course I'm interested, like, what was your motivation? Was it anything to do with any of the community groups or that communication piece? I guess that's what, we see all these people continue on, and you're one of them. And now, granted, we'll talk in a second about the folks
Mhm.
who doesn't necessarily have to go towards degrees.
Mhm.
But that being said, like, what was your motivation?
Yeah. So I will say that the way my outlook currently and the way I'm kind of living my life now with relationship to band and what band is
Okay.
might have been different than it was then. And the
Okay.
reason why I say that is because when, I had this amazing community band experience through high school, but then
Hmm.
going to college, I knew I wanted to go to college. I didn't think I wanted to be a band director, but my primary reason for wanting to go to UNT to study with Dr. Bowman because my dad before he became a band director for 33 years on Long Island. Excuse me. He was a tuba player for Guy Lombardo's band.
Oh, okay.
So he was for 3 years, playing with Guy Lombardo and doing all the New Year's Eve concerts and touring around the country. And
Wow.
he had all these great stories about what it was like being able to be a full-time professional touring, gigging tuba player.
Uh-huh.
So in third grade on Long Island, when it was time to choose an instrument, my brother had picked tuba like my dad, and I didn't want to pick the same instrument as my
Yep.
brother, so I picked the euphonium. But I know third grade, Chris Troiano, if I wanted to be a touring, gigging musician, euphonium was not the smart thing to do at the time.
That's
So
right.
knowing that the primary source of employment for euphonium players are in the military bands,
Mhm.
and the premier military bands primarily being centered around the Washington, D.C. area.
Mhm.
And having seen, going on their websites and seeing who the euphonium players were in those bands and where they had gone, I saw a majority of them had gone to North Texas and studied with Dr. Bowman. So my idea of going to Texas was primarily motivated by the idea of wanting to become a professional euphonium player.
Mhm.
I went down there starting in music education, knowing if I do become a band director, I want to at least be as good on my instrument as I can be. That way
Mhm.
I can teach to the best of my ability. And then while I was down there, I was able to add a double major. So I did a dual music education and performance degree while I was down there. Um, so I was primarily job focused. Me going to
Got
Texas,
it.
I would say coming back or coming up to Northern Virginia was similar. I wanted to live near the area
Mhm.
that I wanted to one day be employed in. The teacher at North Texas, or the teacher at George Mason's name is Mark Jenkins. He's
Mhm.
the principal euphonium player in the Marine Band right now.
Mhm.
So coming even up to Northern Virginia, it was still mainly motivated by this idea of wanting to become a professional full-time euphonium player. And then it wasn't until the end of my master's degree, I didn't give up on that goal also, but then I
Mhm.
started engaging more with my current boss now and another mentor of mine, Dr. Michael Nickens, who's the director of the Green Machine Pep Band.
Mhm.
And Doc Nix, as he's known here at school, was really, really big on opening a student's eyes and opening my eyes and showing wider possibilities and
Mhm.
other ways of engaging with music and enjoying music. And it's all indicative of the ensemble that he created here at George Mason 2006, the Green Machine Pep Band. That
Mhm.
ensemble is the largest ensemble that we have here at the university, but it is over 80% non-music majors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you don't have to be majoring in it or
Right.
doing it full time to be able to engage with it and love it and take it with you the
Yep.
rest of your life.
Yeah, well, and actually on a recent podcast that I did, one of a community member that I came across of, she made a comment about this this way of how we define our labels. You know what I mean? And for you, you're a professional euphonium player, you have your degrees, you're all in this music, and we find people all the time who are great musicians who do not have degrees.
Yeah. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
my teacher when I was at Penn State's tuba player, but Marty Erickson.
Mhm.
And I always joke, not that he's not a phenomenal music teacher, he's great, but he always says, I don't really have a college degree because he went the army, and he has all that experiences with that. And of course, he had private lessons and all of those different things, but he didn't really have the clout with that. So I'm just interested as you being involved with the pep band and involved with students now who are just non-music majors. Um, what's your carrot that you bring them in with, if I may ask, as far as, keeping them continuing? And then I'm going to ask the next thing after that. Once they do leave,
Yeah.
do you see them continue? So those are
Yeah.
the two things I'm kind of interested.
So I know from the pep band side of things, the
Mhm.
pep band here at George Mason is kind of unique. Before 2006, there was always an athletic band presence here at the university, but then in 2006, George Mason made it to the Final Four in the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
And then following that success for the men's basketball team at the Final Four, they decided to formalize the athletic band experience by bringing on a full-time tenure track position,
Oh,
which
wow.
was Michael Nickens.
Yep.
And when Doc took over that job, he made it very unique by incorporating all original arrangements
Oh,
that
wow.
were more centered on the pop music and hip hop and R&B and rock music that was popular
Hmm.
on the radio at the time. And then with that, he would add, there were vocalists. We have a very robust electric guitar, electric bass, synthesizer, electric malacat, which is just like an electric marimba xylophone.
Hmm.
Like, and then so much that nobody's ever turned away from the ensemble. So we have oboes, we have bassoons, we have electric harps, electric violins, electric cellos. Obviously, these were added over time, but
Right.
with the carrot of the pep band being the unique experience of playing a lot of this music that most collegiate pep bands don't play,
Hmm.
and a lot of that music being of people that is rarely represented in
Hmm.
this type of music as well. It definitely drew a lot of students to the pep band in particular. Um, and then from my side of things with the historical music, particularly running the 19th century brass band, students appear to be very interested in
Hmm.
things that they are unfamiliar with. Some students, some people are completely turned off by it and don't want to
Right.
have anything to do with unusual instruments, but there's a good number of students that are interested in things that look unusual. The cornets and alto horns and baritones that
Yep.
can basically be played the same way as they're familiar with their current instruments, but there's just a quirkiness about them that, that's an element that brings students in. And then the music being so melodic, melody based
Hmm.
and accessible, just makes it fun. It's all dance music or pop music for the time,
Yep.
marching music, so it's all just really entertaining and fun to play. So for the historical music, it would be those two things: the uniqueness of the instruments and the experience, and the accessibility and funness. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Of the music.
Yep. Well, very cool. Yeah, and like I said, I obviously, we met through the kind of the history side of things, and that was my one question that I actually had for you. You made a comment about, some just are totally turned off, and some just find it very interesting. And I guess this is kind of twofold. What do you find interesting as far as the kind of the historical presence of this historical kind of brass band that that existed, hundreds of years ago? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're kind of now, and not to be rude, but we're in 2023.
Mhm.
And it's like how I'm just interested in your drive of how you're sharing this with these students, especially in the collegiate level.
Yeah.
What's the motivation? What do you feel that you're giving them as far as the historical side of it, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, for
That's
sure.
the best
And
way to
and
say
I'll say, yeah, and I'll
it.
say, as when I was in high school and even through undergrad, I saw a lot of these types of instruments being played by colleagues,
Oh, okay.
and thought that they were unusual, but
Hmm.
not in a, oh, let me look into it too. Like I was not really interested in the ophicleide or the serpent,
Right.
back in undergrad or anything. Though
Right.
I did grow up on Long Island. My dad played in a 19th century brass band on Long Island, which is part of the reason why I got back into it here in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
That's kind of a side story, but yeah, my interest in this music always seemed to be being super heavily involved again in, for me, the military aspirations and the militaristic side of
Hmm.
what band is, was, will always be to certain extents, and then having that very developed sense and idea of what band is currently, what it can be going forward. I just always, or would naturally ask myself the question out of curiosity, well, if this is what we're doing right now, what was before this? Well, you know, incorrectly so, but people will say the first real band piece is written for a modern concert band, or like the whole suites, right? We know there's stuff
Right.
before, but a lot of
Yeah.
people like throwing Holst kind of at the beginning.
Yep.
Like, all right, so you got the Holst first and second suite. Cool. There were Sousa before that. Cool. Let's dig into a little
Yep.
bit more Sousa.
Mm-hmm.
There's Sousa after that too, but the Sousa going back into like the 1880s and stuff. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
cool. What about before that? Oh, Patrick Gilmore. Oh, Claudio Grafula. Oh, Walter Dignam in the 1850s. Oh, Francis
Mm-hmm.
Johnson in the 1820s. Oh, uh, you go to Colonial Williamsburg and you hear a fife and drum corps, and
Mm-hmm.
the United States Old Guard has a fife and drum corps, but I was never told in my undergraduate music experience and any of my degrees that not only during that time was there fife and drum corps music, but what some of us learned as harmony music or indoor
Mm-hmm.
chamber wind music
Mm-hmm.
was literally played outside while marching as military band music as well.
Mm-hmm.
During the American Revolution, there were fife and drum corps and there were bands of music.
Mm-hmm.
So just this idea that you can kind of keep on going back and back, and then stuff that predates our country, both on this continent and in Europe, you can
Mm-hmm.
just kind of keep on leapfrogging back just as
Mm-hmm.
a curiosity of what came before and how what we learn about in terms of the repertoire, what we learn
Mm-hmm.
about in terms of the composers, what we learn in terms of the people that were making the music,
Mm-hmm.
and how they were making the music, both in terms of the instruments and equipment they were playing, and some of the pedagogy and musical ideas that they were learning at the time, how that can kind of help inform what we're doing today. Um, Pause. That's a, is there anything on that? Because I feel like I could kind of keep on going down this rabbit hole for a little bit. But
Yeah, you can. I mean, I know it's kind of funny. I know I always look at the what I've always talked about as kind of the golden age of bands, right? When it kind of hit the United States, in the early 1900s. And but you're so right. It's not that. I mean, it's before that. I mean, it's obviously when people were starting to kind of migrate to the United States, as you said, it's just very interesting to see how that already existed. The band world already existed. It's just that, the orchestras were so more popular, I would have to say.
yeah,
So it was
yeah,
like, go play your brass instruments outside, right?
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And then I guess on kind of a personal note too, of why I think some of this music can be helpful and impactful for students. Again, with me admittingly being pretty tunnel vision through my first two music degrees,
Mhm.
um, I would even reluctantly play and teach trombone just for being able to make rent payments and stuff. I didn't
Right,
necessarily enjoy playing trombone, but I did
right,
it because I knew I had to as a euphonium player.
right.
uh Most people don't know what a euphonium is, so they're not going to hire one because they don't even know what it is. um that being said, I never touched a tuba. My practice regimen was so strict, and again, I'll say tunnel vision, that I felt like through the end of high school, all through undergrad, and most of my master's degree, I felt I cannot play a performance or teach a lesson or learn in a lesson unless I first do an hour-long warm-up daily
Hmm.
exercise routine.
Yep.
And if I don't do these exact things in sequential order, the same way every single day, that my face just doesn't feel right, and then I'm not able to kind of deliver the way I know I'm
Hmm.
capable of doing.
Right.
But then getting into the historical music and then playing on older instruments and different mouthpieces, and then
Hmm.
eventually branching off and playing some E flat tuba,
Hmm.
it really helped kind of break me out of my shell a little bit.
Okay.
And now it helped me develop a versatility and a flexibility on all of my instruments, not just the period instruments, but stuff that I'm
Hmm.
able to take over to my Wilson 2900 contemporary euphonium,
Uh-huh.
that I'm able to be a lot more flexible. I'm able to be a lot more comfortable. uh, I still do that routine when I can. Granted, a lot of it has
Sure.
to do with now having a different full-time job and not having the practice room time I had
Yes.
in an undergraduate degree. But yeah, having that flexibility with the different instruments and mouthpieces, and really with them all being, a lot of those older instruments being at a higher pitch center,
Hmm.
a lot of the instruments not having good internal intonation, not having it really develop the ear also, another
Hmm.
good thing that's been able to kind of carry over across the different centuries of performance that we participate in. Um, yeah, so that those are kind of two of like the personal ones. And then like I said, I know a lot of students come to us being interested in the instruments. Some of them are, you know, second, third, fourth chair players in the large ensembles, and they come to
Hmm.
us and we're able to throw an E flat horn at them, and they're playing, you know, all the melody stuff. So kind of similar to how you and I'm sure,
Hmm.
played in tuba euphonium ensembles through college. You
Hmm.
know, a lot of that, the purpose of that type of music to a certain extent is to give the tuba and euphonium players
Hmm.
more chances to wiggle their fingers a little bit more than they would in, you know, band settings. So kind of
Right.
a similar thing here too for brass players being able to shine in a different setting.
Well, one thing, it's, and I could be wrong, and of course, I did not research it. I will tell you that, but I have not have come across, a college level having these kind of historical groups. Now, of course, I've seen presentations. I've seen other people who've done it out in the community. So I
Mhm.
was just kind of interested, how did this all come about? Where you're offering this kind of for the students, because I agree with you 100%. I mean, it gives you and you've played way more than I have, but of the old historical instruments that you play,
Mhm.
or we all play, I should say, you
Mhm.
know, learning how they're not forgiving, as you said.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So, like for example, I have a double bell euphonium. It is not forgiving.
Yeah.
With it has nothing to do. I have a Wilson 2900 too, so it's like very easy to play. You can just pick it up and be wherever and be in tune.
Yeah.
But playing that,
Except for the
you
A's. The A's are always flat,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. The A's, yeah. And a few notes, but you know where those are, but it's just like where every note is like,
Yeah.
and you got to work really hard. I'm just interested how this kind of came where you're offering this experience to college students that would have never gotten this experience before. So and I was interested if you could talk a little bit more about that. And kind of how, like, and also what kind of things you do with the ensemble. I mean, obviously I know you play, but I'm
Mhm.
assuming do concerts and those kind of things. So,
Yep, yep. So I will say that through the Green Machine as an umbrella organization,
mhm.
we are very open to community participation also. So all
Oh,
the
awesome.
ensembles, including the regiment band that I direct, has current students, has alumni, and has community members in it.
Okay.
The regiment band right now, if everybody that is kind of on the roster and shows up whenever they can, if everybody were to show up, we'd have between 15 and 20 people
Oh, wow.
that would be
Okay.
able to participate just in the regiment band. And then the numbers are different for fife and drum corps and the pep
Right.
band and all that kind of stuff. But early music and historical music offerings are offered at other schools. Most
Okay.
large institutions offer early music, if not ensembles, as kind of the minimum. Many offer degrees in early music and historical performance, but
Oh,
the thing
okay.
different, like like Oberlin and Indiana University in North
Hmm.
Texas, and a lot of these schools and conservatories kind of offer these experiences, but those primarily focus on what's referred to as quote unquote early music, which
Hmm.
would be primarily Renaissance and Baroque music.
Hmm.
What we're trying to do here at Mason, we're actually in the process of actively trying to pursue this to a greater degree. We're trying to offer a historical and early music degree program,
Oh, wow.
but one that focuses on band instead
Wow.
of the Renaissance and Baroque
Yeah.
styles. So
Yep.
kind of instead of going from, you know, uh the 1200 to 1750, we're going to
Yeah.
start at 1750 and go up to like 1900 and focus on the wind band tradition.
Yep.
Currently as it stands, the two historical ensembles here at Mason, the fife and drum corps and the regiment band, exist as a class. You can enroll in it,
Okay.
but it only counts as an elective like art credit. And for music majors, they already have a 120 credit limit that doesn't allow for electives. It's just so crammed with
Yeah.
classes that they're required to take
Yep.
that we rarely get music majors to actually enroll in the class. We do get some non-music majors to enroll in it that they're able to, again, count towards kind of like a general art elective for the university.
Right. Right.
But when people are participating, and I'll speak on behalf of the regiment band in particular, when people are participating in the ensemble, in the rehearsals, we go over some pedagogical things that will help them, maneuver the instruments. We talk about generic brass exercises. We talk about intonation. We talk about articulation. So it's a regular ensemble in that sense. But
Okay.
then when we're looking at a new piece of music, I'll kind of give them a little bit of background, say this piece was written by this person, he directed this band, this piece means that, and I'm able to give them a little bit of kind of historical context with that also. And then each semester, the band performs an end of semester performance.
Oh, cool.
In the fall semesters, we have it labeled as the historical showcase, and that gets live streamed. And we actually just had it this past Saturday from the date of this recording, 3 days ago or 2 days ago. 3 days ago, we just had that end of semester performance. And in the spring, we have a muster, the Fairfax Muster, which is an outdoor performance. And we have a bunch of other groups from outside the university come and perform outdoors for a crowd that we're able to kind of gather for that. But then in addition to those two school built-in performances, people out in the community are able to contact us and hire us for outside performances too. So the regiment band performs at nursing homes, it performs at history events, performs at schools, and in all of those settings, we perform the music. I do most of the orations and the talking, so the people in the ensemble are kind of able to get a little bit more information even in those performances.
Right.
But then I also require each performer to know what instrument they're playing on, like the maker, who the maker was, where the instrument was built, when the instrument was built. And then in the middle of the performance, I make each performer stand up, talk about the instrument, and play on the instrument too. So kind of some
awesome.
forced public speaking exercise built into it too, which, aside from classes that require you to make a PowerPoint presentation and then deliver it in front of the class, there's not a ton of, talking as music majors, there's not a ton of opportunities where we're forced to kind of talk to a crowd that way. I know, like when I did every recital through school, through all my degrees, I would make a program and put liner notes in the program. I never spoke, in any recitals. I would play, walk off stage, come back, play again. Didn't do any speaking. I don't intend to do that for future students that I'm overseeing their recitals. I think having that public speaking element is very important. And this way of kind of quote unquote forcing them to do it in these outside performances is a good skill that we're trying to have them build through that way as well.
What's funny you say that, because communicating to the audience, I'm just a true believer that the more you can give them information about what they're seeing, the more connected they're going to be. And you're doing that because you're talking about, an instrument maker, you're actually having them play the instrument. I mean, it's like they'll that those stories that, the history, the traditions that you're trying to push off, I think is just phenomenal, because that it's just more than just hearing a band play. And I know I don't want to be cliche and say it that way. You know what I mean? But, because you're actually educating. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Even though maybe your students are probably, no, I don't want to be up in front playing.
It's especially fun when we have a new member that we don't necessarily always tell them. A lot of that's me forgetting, just, oh yeah, by the way, we do this. What instrument you're playing in 15 minutes, you're going to be standing up and talking about it to 100 people. So good luck with that.
So my question is, I mean, obviously you have, and I should have clarified because I know you made a comment about, kind of early music. I know there was one I meant to say more of wind band early music, I should
Oh
say,
yeah,
because
no,
because
I understand. You probably know.
yeah,
I was speaking broadly for
yeah,
your.
yeah, yeah. No, I should have said it that way because after you say, I'm like, yeah, I know that exists. It's just
Yeah,
so unique,
yeah.
to have more of this, the kind of early wind band, this even a fight. I mean, I know there's, fife and drum corps out there. I know there's,
Mhm.
brass bands, but just the kind of having this with older instruments being played, I just think it's remarkable.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
as you're molding these students, I don't want to call it molding, but as you're thinking through, providing this service to the community, and I will say it that way. I mean, I know that's what universities and colleges do, and I get all of that. But I was just interested, you mentioned it, and I would it seems like some people that enjoy your ensemble so much have come back as alumni. It seems
Mhm.
as like you have community members kind of coming in and participating. I guess getting back to this whole side of what I'm looking at as being this continuance in music, do you find, and it's probably hard because I don't know how much you keep in touch with everybody after they graduate, but are you finding that people are more engaged with continuing to play music after, going through these kind of programs, or do you find that your alumni want to come back and continue to participate just because they enjoyed that? Because I guess where I'm coming at, and this is, and I'm not trying to get you to say the right thing. This is not what I'm
Yeah,
trying to do, but it's like I find that people are in this cog of playing instruments. They're in high school, they're part of the marching band, the concert band, the jazz band, whatever, and then of course athletics pushes that quite a bit, and they go off to college and yes, I went to Penn State, so of course you'd want to play in the blue band, you know what I mean, and play for the football team, and play in the basketball pep band and games, and especially when there's good athletics, but then that ends,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And for you, you're continuing. I know you're in more of a teaching aspect now, but I'm interested about that side of it, your perception of that, because I feel like we build them up, build them up, build them up, build them up, build up the students, and then it's like, unfortunately, see you later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not unfortunate, but they're on to newer and better things. But I was just interested if, what you can talk about with that, because that's kind of what I'm looking at. Because I've seen, I'll be honest with you, I've just seen the negative side of the other
Yeah.
aspect of it where people do it in institutions and, well, I did that in school, and now I have a life and I have kids and I have school, or not school, work, and I have, jobs and rent
Yeah.
and house payments, so I'm just interested to get your perception about that, if you find anything with the historical side of it or
Mhm. Yeah, I know it's an interesting question, and one that I haven't, you know, really thought about that specifically before, but it's getting my gears turning a little bit. I know for the regiment band, when we have students, we right now the about half of our membership is students, the other half is alumni and community members. And I
okay,
would say from the student side of things, uh largely once students graduate, if they stay in the area, they are continuing to play with the regiment band.
okay,
Many of them continue uh, to either become band directors or do non-music related things too.
okay,
But they seem to, yeah, want to continue with the regiment band. I know from the pep band side of things, and this is all probably also facilitated by just social media and the way that we communicate with our current members. We don't ever, for I'm talking Green Machine as a whole ensemble, a whole entity across
hmm,
all ensembles. Once students graduate, they're not removed from groups or email threads or anything like that. The
oh, okay,
communication is constant, and then it's up to them to either uh, leave groups or request names to be taken off mailing lists kind of thing.
got it,
So from the pep band side of things, I know, the band, is, 150, at its height kind of thing. But
right, sure,
right now in December when school has ended, but basketball is still going on,
hmm,
we have an obligation to the university and to the basketball teams during this time, just
Hmm.
like we do during school year too. So
Right.
it's during December and early January. We actually rely as a pep band heavily on our alumni to come and perform with the group. Now, granted, some students are local and they're able to continue playing too,
Right.
but a number of alumni, from all the different years come in and are able to help
Yeah. Jump
provide
through.
music and the
Yep.
band through this month-ish period of time. So again, I think it's for us as an organization, being able to provide a certain experience while they're here and then
Hmm.
maintaining open lines of communication once they're gone, that they're, very open to coming back if they're available and when they're available. Now, granted, this is different for each individual person, as you
Hmm.
said, depending on their life circumstances and their career and
Hmm.
their family and everything. And it's also going to be different for organizations and ensembles. I would like to think as a very banned thing to do is that people wouldn't ever shut their doors to anybody for any reason.
Hmm.
But I understand that there's probably other colleges might be the best example where they're not going to
Right.
allow non-students or community members to
Yep.
participate. That's just something that our director made a mission of his, that he wanted to be that welcoming and involved, and it's been working for us. So
Well, that's
uh
good.
yeah, for other schools, like I said, I could see how that might not be the case. And then
Right.
for some people, it might be that lack of access, that once they're
Right.
done with school, if that school then shuts the door on them, they don't know where to go. So
Right.
kudos to you for creating, this more of a vocal way of trying to communicate to people that there is
Yep.
musical life after school and ways of
Right.
being able to stay engaged musically with the community and bands and stuff. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's true because I mean, you're right, and it's good that George Mason's doing that, and I know some of the institutions I was at would allow community members get in, to be involved. But I know when I went for one job, I was talking to the one dean, and I
Mhm.
said to her, I said it's kind of weird because we have a lot of community members, and yet they don't pay anything to be there, you know?
Yeah.
And they participate and they fill out the groups and give the experience we need for the students. But sometimes when it gets more community members than students,
Mhm.
it gets, I always worry, that they're going to shut the doors, but I haven't been in an experience of that yet. But I always
Right.
think about that sometimes. Not that I don't want that. And that's great. You guys have that as a mission, especially,
Mhm.
when there's, semester is over and yes, you have basketball games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So been there and done that too. And you
We're also in a slightly unique position where we have, Division I basketball here at George Mason
Mhm.
and no football. We don't have any
Oh, well.
football here at the university. So the athletic band, the Green Machine Pep Band, is uh very focused on men's and women's basketball. And then there's occasional sports that kind of reach out for like one-off events,
Mhm.
like a homecoming or
Right.
something like that. But yeah, I understand that kind of puts us in a unique situation too.
Yeah.
So not, not trying to preach or do anything
Right.
else. I understand that I'm in a unique position from other people, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's good. It's good you guys have that support.
Mhm.
But it's so true. I just kind of getting back to the side of it. It's you said it, and I just wanted to bring it up. And again, I'll get off my soapbox, but it's the fact of, just people know that there's stuff out there, and that's the question I always ask because, I always joke too. It's our age, and not that I'm in my 40s, but it's like when I started getting involved with community groups, I was as a conductor, and after I got out and I was a music teacher, it was me and everybody else was older. You know what I mean? And I'm talking like 10, 15, 20 years older than me, and of course I made great friends, but it's the fact of, I always joke like, where's our age group? Where
Yeah.
is all this stuff? And and I think it is life, life takes over and
Mhm.
families and all of that. But I did want to kind of double back. You made a comment, and because I was in your shoes, and I know this is a little bit different about continuing music, but very narrow-minded, as far as being a euphonium player.
Mhm.
This is what you need to do to make you have a great sound. These are the hours you have to put in to be a professional as yourself. And I went down that path. And I'm just interested if you could talk a little bit more about how that opened for you when you got into the role of what you're doing right now in the historical side of things. Because I know you said you opened your minds a little bit, you got a little bit away from this narrowness of looking at your skill and your side of it. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I truly also believe that there's people out there that it's hot or cold. And what I mean by that is, if I'm going to be a professional, I'm going to play in the military bands or play in an orchestra or play and I'm thinking outside, not euphonium players, obviously, and play professionally that way. And if not, then I'm not going to participate any more than that. And I seem like you've crafted yourself, and I know it's more job related because, you obviously we all need jobs, but you seem to crafted yourself to be a little bit more not so narrow-minded. And I'm just interested if you could talk a little bit more about that and what that's done for you and as far as your personal performance gigging now.
Well, some of that also, there's a community band here in Fairfax called the City Band of Fairfax. And through them, they have small ensembles under them, as well as I know various community band organizations do throughout the country, some of them. One of the small ensembles, smaller groups that the City Band of Fairfax has is called the Alte Kameraden German Band. So my participation with the City Band of Fairfax is exclusively through the German band that they have. So again, kind of through community music making, but kind of having another niche style of music and genre of music. There's people in the community that both want to hear certain styles of music and certain people in the community that want to play those styles of music. In this case, it's the German music. In North Texas, I played a little bit in a Mexican banda, playing, really fast, high, like almost kind of like German music, but a little bit. But yeah, just having this idea of band being a liberating thing and not a constricting thing, and having it be as welcoming and encompassing as possible. While I was doing my dissertation, I came across a book that was talking about how in the UK, maybe it's trickled over here by now, I'm not entirely sure, but this reference was talking about in the UK, they refer to playing music as banding, and they'd use it as a verb. And to banding, going out there, it includes them rehearsing, it includes them performing, but it also means to like be a community and to be among the people through the experience of practicing and rehearsing. It makes it much less individual and more of an ensemble and more community based, not necessarily, whether it's paid or not, but the true sense of community. So as I was saying earlier, how I feel like earlier I was very narrow-minded in my approach to the instrument and my job prospects and stuff. Kind of this idea of banding and band makes me feel a lot happier about music in this country and people playing music together, where banding and being in a band is like being chill and like being easy to work with and contributing to the community, not just the band community that you're a part of, but literally, playing concerts for your neighbors and being a service organization and being so less focused on, I don't want to say perfection, because obviously we can still have, very high achieving musical ensembles, at this level, but still focus on being a service ensemble and a community serving ensemble. I'm kind of dancing around it because it's not something I've been able to internally be able to fully speak eloquently about yet, as you can probably see. But the idea is kind of germinating around back there, that I don't know, maybe you have an idea that can help me even lock in my own thoughts.
Well, it's hard because, this is something I've been, I guess, thinking about since my dissertation. I did it on a community band, the Belfont Community Band, which I was the conductor at the time. And I was just asking them why they participate, and they really discussed. I mean, they discussed all kinds of things. They discussed things about, previous military interactions where they played, or school, of course, or just having. And some of them brought up to this idea of sound and this aesthetic response where, and I always described it when I remember when I was in high school and I wasn't even playing an instrument. It's kind of really foolish, but I marched with the main guard, so I carried the American flag the first thing I did because I started a little late in band, and I got chills. It's like I had this like feeling, and it's weird because I mean, what did I do except march down the field and across the field and stood there, but I got chills, and I think it's this engagement. It's very hard to describe, because I think it's different for everybody,
Yeah.
and it's so exactly what you're talking about. You hit the nail right on the head. I mean, it's I think for you, it seems, and again, I can't speak for you, but it seems like you've kind of got engaged in this, and kind of it becomes much more than, like you said, you're not worrying about bills. You're not worrying about, we always joke, the politics, the world, the life, all the stuff that's going on, and
Yeah.
tragedies. And of course, there's not a lot of good things. I'm not trying to say the world is bad, but
Mhm.
I feel like it is freeing. It is something that you can go and play and just get involved with. And it's truly entertainment,
Yeah.
entertainment in a good way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that helps.
No, no, for sure. And it helped remind me also that not while I was doing some research along the lines of the banding idea as a verb, there was another source. I think I might have it here. Marching in step through time, or something like that. It was the name of the book. And
Uh-huh.
it talks about how we as humans psychologically and physically get relief and pleasure and enjoyment out of
Mhm.
being a part of a unit, and
Mhm.
how
Sure.
the sense of physically marching and
Mhm.
having that sense in your feet, and
Yep.
uh that sense of being in sync uh
Yep.
does physical and emotional things to the human body that
Mhm.
makes it enjoyable to be a part of something like a band.
Mhm.
And it also reminds me, a few weeks ago, for the first time I went to the university, we have a healing arts ensemble.
Okay.
um, and the director is currently a doctoral student, but she's doing her research on how music can be used as a therapy for
Mhm.
people, military veterans with PTSD.
Mhm.
So I attended this performance for the first time just out of curiosity, and stuff I'll need to do more research on myself, and probably attend a few more recitals to, I don't know, to see if I buy in. Maybe is not the nicest way to say it. There
Yeah,
is
right.
some interesting stuff there, but she was referring to a similar thing with like the marching in time with and being a part of a
Mhm.
unit, that according to the research that she's doing, there is a very real idea of being able to sync heartbeats and vibrations in the body with people not only playing in an ensemble but with the audience as
Mhm.
well. I remember seeing, there's a band called Snarky Puppy. They're a rock, jazz, fusion, jam band kind of
Uh-huh.
thing. And Snarky Puppy played a concert a few years ago at the Kennedy Center here in DC with the National Symphony Orchestra. They did one album where it was all the band plus an orchestra. So they performed that album down with the NSO. And there's a moment when, it's getting really, really loud, and then it just like all the sound shuts off, and it's a very soft piano improvised solo. And the song was called The Clearing, and it was going through the woods and then finding a clearing in the middle of the woods. And I remember my wife was with me for that performance. We both said afterwards, like, it's all building up, and as soon as the sound stopped, you could like hear a pin drop. Like that particular piece of music, and that in that particular performance was a very rare, very obvious time where everybody on stage and everybody in the Kennedy Center, how many hundreds of people that is, were all breathing together and really felt like a community in that moment as well. So I know that's kind of like a little bit beyond kind of what we're talking about, but yeah, music has this ability to connect us. I guess is
no, exactly what you're explaining, whether it's actually in a band or in general. I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, it's just amazing, and I just wanted to say this to you. It's like, we all work and whatever our jobs are, but there's been so many days I remember it's like I'm frustrated, I'm tired, I'm miserable, and then I go pick up my horn and play in a band, and it's like I'm just a new person, and it's just something to say about that, and I don't know what it is, and I know just like you are, it's like I have to do more research myself, but it's like it's just I don't know, and it just it provides something for us, and I have to say that. Kind of in closing, I was just kind of interested, is what you would say, I guess, to others as far as, this thing. I mean, you obviously seem very passionate. You're very passionate about what you do. You offer an awesome historical presence for, you know, um, people that probably would have never picked up an instrument before like that. Um, Obviously, I can see through your work, you're very passionate about kind of keeping this, style of music making and music in general and band in general kind of going, especially being euphonium, because I will say that it's like, yes, I always joke, it was like, wow, I'm going for a performance degree, so the next job is in 25 years. you know because it's a military band, and no offense to anybody, and there's going to be like 350 or 400 applicants too, by the way. you know but I'm just interested what you would tell others as far as, to continue to participate or to continue playing their instrument, or, what it is that you can offer other people to hope that they
Yeah.
will not drop their instrument.
Yeah.
you know?
That's something that Michael Nickens was telling me through my doctorate degree when I started working closely with him. I wouldn't ever discourage people for going for those high profile 1 in a million jobs. If that's what you
Mhm.
want to do, go for it,
Go for it. Right. Yep.
But then to those, I'll kind of go through other people too, but for those particular people that are, tunnel vision like I was in undergrad,
Mhm.
still go for it. Those jobs do exist and people need to be hired for them. So it's
Mhm.
still a valid opportunity. And if it's something you want to do, go for it. But don't be at the same time as tunnel visioned as I was and think, well, if I don't, get to play with the United States Marine Band, then all of my time on this instrument has been a waste and I'm going to put it
Mhm.
away and not do it again. Or, I'm going to, funnel all of my interest into something else, or,
Mhm.
anything like that. You can still maybe even have another paid playing opportunity that you're not aware of. Like if you're a trombone player and you want to play in a symphony orchestra or a band, like, do you know how to blow changes over a lead sheet? Like, you can probably, if you don't, learn how, and then you can get some good like wedding band gigs and make some good
Mhm.
money playing at weddings. uh you can play some German music and get paid like $30, but then hey, you get free food and free beer out of it too. So that's pretty
Right.
good. So yeah, there's these other opportunities that can exist, and beyond, that too. People that are going for music education degrees, and once they become band directors, don't want to play their instrument anymore, because I know that there's a handful that just want to teach also, or
There is.
people that are going through college or don't even go through college and play an instrument. There's opportunities out there to play recreationally, to play for money also, and just keep your mind and your heart open and know that there's people out there that want to play with you. So don't shut yourself off to them. might be hard to find them sometimes, but there's, as long as we all stick to wanting to be in a band and be what a band is and should be, and be a warm place for people, there's going to be places to play and make music.
Very well said. Yeah, and I agree with you. I feel that you either become tunnel vision as if you're going on with your instrument, or tunnel vision once you get out of school that you feel that it's over, and it's not. And thank you for saying that. I mean, there's obviously no monetary value in me giving you to say anything like that, but knowing that you've experienced that, I think it goes to great depth. So anyway, I want to thank you so much for being part of this podcast, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me, and also being part of the band world and thinking outside the box. I will say that because I just think it's very neat that you're, and I keep saying this, the historical side of it too. I think it's just amazing that you're doing all of that, and I'd love to hear those groups. I'll have to come down.
Ever want to play with us, let us know. We have some school-owned instruments that are the period instruments. They're all owned by the universities. So if you ever want to come down and play, let me know.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to take you up on that offer. All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate for everything you've done. So, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Josh. You have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks.